We've also got some insight into the state of the consumer this morning with Home Depot and Walmart results out before the bell. Now, we heard some consistent themes from both companies that we heard throughout 2023. A more choiceful consumer, pulling back from big ticket purchases, but still consistently spending. For more on this, we turn to Michael Baker, DA Davidson Managing Director and Senior Research Analyst. Good to have you on this show here. So walk us through what we're seeing and what these earnings are telling us about the state of the consumer and what they're still willing to spend on.
Yeah, the consumer is resilient, and in fact, maybe even a little bit better than we thought a year ago. If you recall, about a year ago, there were concerns that 2023 was going to be a recessionary year. I think the odds were from a number of economists that we would fall into a recession, and of course, that hasn't happened. Now, who knows what happens in the future? But it seems like the idea of a recession is a little bit less on the table now than it was, because consumer spending was pretty strong throughout 2023, slowing certainly from the pandemic years, but held in pretty strong. Walmart had a pretty strong holiday season. Home Depot remains negative, and that's more a function of I think housing trends, but less negative than they have been. So we're sort of leveling off, I think, in terms of consumer spending.
In terms of, from a stock perspective, Michael, is it still about those names that are most diversified, like a Walmart, that really are best positioned in this environment? Yes, the consumer is resilient, but becoming a little more cautious. You look at a name like Walmart versus a Home Depot, where there is a bit of a pullback in spending, especially on home upgrades.
Yeah, I think it's just being where the consumer is, and right now the consumer is not spending as much on the home, so that's a much more difficult place for any retailer. But the consumer still is spending on basic everyday needs. Walmart is well positioned there, and in fact, probably better positioned now than they have been in the past several years, and we see that in their share gains. That not only are they growing their comp sales, but they're growing their comp sales better than industry trends. So Walmart has done a lot to position themselves. We're seeing it a lot with higher end consumers to position themselves as a good option for consumers with a little bit more spending power than they had in the past. A lot of that is driven by convenience, and that convenience is driven by their improving online capabilities.
And so, Michael, I mean, we are seeing them, especially when it comes to Walmart, spending on the groceries and the essentials, pulling back, though, on some of the discretionary spending. Is that a trend that you expect to continue regardless of what the Fed does?
I think so, but again, I think it'll sort of moderate in 2024. Now, Walmart, their trends in general merchandise, as an example, were negative, but units are actually up. A lot of that negativity is because they are seeing deflation in those general merchandise categories. So as we're seeing that unit trend get better, that does give us hope. Now, we do think the mix for 2024 will continue to skew towards food and consumables, but maybe a little bit less so than it has been, as we think, first of all, we're going to get a little bit less inflation, still inflation in food, but we are seeing disinflation. So that'll be a little bit less impactful. And we think some of the remodels and the like that they're doing in their stores are going to drive better unit trends in general merchandise sales.
Michael, specifically on Walmart, I'm curious to get your take on this $2.3 billion buy in TV maker Vizio. Obviously, this is an ad play, more real estate when you look at the smart TVs that Vizio offers. How significant is that upside, at least in the medium term, for Walmart's ad business?
Well, the ad business is really important to them. Obviously, they helped us quantify it a little bit here. It was 3.4 billion in sales, which is actually pretty small, about 0.5%, but much higher margins, at least double-digit margins versus the regular business. So advertising is obviously very important. How much the Vizio helps that, hard to quantify, but it certainly should help. And in that advertising business, along with several of their other alternative businesses, as they call them, things like the marketplace and others, are significantly higher margins. And that really gives Walmart the fuel to continue to invest in price, but still grow profits higher than sales, i.e. grow their operating margins because of these strengths of these higher margin alternative businesses. And this Vizio deal just adds to that.
And so, Michael, as we look at Home Depot and some of its competition, including Lowe's, where is the upside going to come from, especially as people aren't moving out of their homes at the same speed and people are sort of stuck in that mortgage rate cycle?
Yeah, well, generally it is a macro play. What we have found over time is the biggest driver to home improvement spending is actually home price appreciation. Now, of course, that is a function of turnover. As you have more turnover, pricing sees pressure upward, and that helps spending. But it really is about home price appreciation, which actually has started to level off. And over the last 4 months, home prices have been up year over year. That's after declining in the earlier part of 2023 off of pandemic highs. But really, the upside in those names is going to come from lower rates, which is going to drive better housing trends, which is going to drive upward pressure on pricing. And that's ultimately what's going to help those guys return to positive comps in our view.
Michael, more retail results out this week, but give me your top play right now when you look at the overall sector.
Yeah, we've talked about top names for the year from the bigger box retailers that we cover as being Ulta and Dick's Sporting Goods. We've also talked about names like O'Reilly and Walmart being preferred or buy rated names. We do have an initiative called Best of Breed Bison, in which we highlight top longer term ideas. And within that bucket, names like O'Reilly, Ulta, and also Tractor Supply are the names that we prefer. That's over a 3 to 5 year time frame.
Michael Baker, D.A. Davidson Managing Director and Senior Research Analyst. Good to talk to you. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.